I want to play this clip. I don't do this very often, if ever, really. But there was a great segment that Chris Hayes had last night with Nehisi Coates, who I think is one of the best writers that we have, particularly online in the country, just in terms of a guy who's just a tremendous thinker. And he has, the exchange here, it's 5 or 6 minutes long. And some of you may have already seen it. And if so, I sort of apologize, although I think I've watched it now 2 or 3 times at least. And it's just a very thoughtful exchange. And Ta-Nehisi Coates is someone who both can express sort of the what is outrageous at the moment, but also see it in this broader context. Because I think, I agree with what Danny was saying in terms of this being an American problem, and it frankly has been not just an American problem as opposed to just a white or a black problem, but it is so deeply embedded in the identity of America. It's almost to the extent that this has been a problem for this country, it is almost one of those problems that you cannot divorce from the very existence of the problem. I mean, it is literally woven into the DNA of this country. And it has been the defining, most uniquely American problem, or the defining dilemma of America. And the tough part about dealing with it is that it's sort of hard to say what the benefit of solving it, well, I should say, sort of hard to convince the benefit of solving this problem to the established order and those who have control over the established order. In other words, I can sit here and articulate, what problems can be solved by certain policy prescriptions. But at the end of the day, it's not one of those that you say, like, oh, Lee, you're going to get 35% more efficiency if we are not subjugating black people in this country. And by subjugation, I mean, make no mistake. I mean, you just read this hashtag Alive While Black. It's really just more of the same. I mean, I've told this story 100 times on the show about just having some type of revelatory moment 20 some odd years ago when I was doing a sitcom, which was a mixed white and black sitcom, like literally comedic styles combined, and was having lunch at one of my buddy's houses, and his buddy pulls in, just saying, "Oh God, I've been pulled over 5 times by the cops in the past 3 weeks for driving my Range Rover, and I called and said, can I get some type of sticker to put on my car that says I own this?" So when I get pulled over, and the sergeant at the precinct house was like, "Are you black?" "Yes." "There's not much I can do." I mean, and that type of stuff stuck with me because I know, particularly for someone who was such a sort of like, I could relate to it oddly enough because of watching, in retrospect, Lenny Bruce's career and seeing how his harassment by the police drove him down a wormhole and essentially destroyed him because he became so obsessed by it. And just thinking like, yeah, that's a personality trait I can relate to. And if I was a black guy who was driving a nice car and pulled over multiple times simply because I was a black guy driving a nice car, I don't think I could achieve anything. Like, I don't think I'd be able to sleep. I don't think I'd be able to get up in the morning and tie my shoes. I would be so obsessed and just consumed by this banal daily injustice. Maybe not so banal. And, you know, it's hard to say to white people in this, it's hard to make the case to white people in this country that, hey, we really should have a society where black people are not subjected to that extra baggage they got to carry around. As in, if I'm a parent, I've got to tell my kid, like, here's a special set of rules for you because you're black. Not just the burden it puts on the kid, but the burden it puts on the parents. It's hard to make the case to white people, like, you should really, it's going to be much better for society in general, and it's going to help these people actually compete and integrate into society more if they don't have to walk around with this extra baggage. Because it necessarily means, like, you're going to lose a significant amount of your privilege, which is just, and you're not even aware of it. You're not even aware of the privilege that is involved with walking around and not having to deal with that. So on top of all the crap, like, is my kid's going to get, is my kid going to get a cold today? How is she doing in school? Is she getting along with her friends? Is she going to look both ways when she crosses the street? And then add on all of these other literally existential threats to the kid. Because she's black or because he's black. That's just like, it's just like a drag. It's like running. Yeah, I'm going to run the marathon this year, and I'm going to do it with a backpack full of weights. And none of the other marathon runners are going to be aware of the fact that, hey, they have a distinct advantage over me. All right, so let's play this this clip from Chris Hayes' program from last night. He starts off talking about he was on air while protests were going on in New York City. It's 6 minutes long, but I definitely think it's worth it. Let's play this.
The West Side Highway here in New York, where it appears protesters have shut down part of the West Side Highway. This in response to the decision of the grand jury not to indict a police officer who put a chokehold or arm around the neck of Eric Garner as he said, "I can't breathe," 11 times before dying. Joining me now is Nehisi Coates, senior editor for The Atlantic. All right, Nehisi, where do we start with this? What was your reaction today when you heard the news?
These guys are in danger. I would like to say that I was surprised. I was not surprised. I was not shocked at all. I think we expect our grand juries to exist outside of the context, outside of the forces that affect ordinary human beings, ordinary Americans who live in this country, and that just isn't true. Laws, grand juries, all of our hallowed institutions, they are what the people make them to be ultimately. They don't exist on some other plane, immune from other forces like American racism. So I'd like to say I was shocked and surprised. I was not, regrettably.
I saw you saying earlier today, or I think you might have tweeted this, the way we've been having this discussion is about the intersection of policing and racial bias. And
right.
You were saying, let's not hold the police out as an institution that is the one institution in American life particularly tainted by racial bias.
Right. Well, I mean, the history of this country is, we have this long history of racism in this country. And as it happens, the criminal justice system has been perhaps the most prominent instrument for administering racism. But the racism doesn't actually come from the criminal justice system. It doesn't come from the police. The police are pretty much doing, what the society that, they originate from want them to do. If you can look at any number of studies on how African Americans are perceived in terms of criminality versus other Americans. You can look at the long history of criminalizing black people in this country, which did not begin with Eric Garner, which did not begin with Tamir Rice, which did not begin with John Crawford. This is a very, very old tradition in this country, and the expectation that the police, that our grand juries, that our prosecutors will exist outside of history is I think, a grave mistake. I think we have to, come to some sort of terms with the country that we're living in.
Okay, so if that's true, then how do you avoid either fatalism or impotent rage? I mean, what do you do?
I don't know that you avoid infinite rage. I mean, I don't know that infinite rage can be, I walk around with it. Baldwin talked about this, to be black in America is to walk around, all afire, enraged constantly. So I don't know that you can, avoid that. In terms of avoiding fatalism, listen, I'm the descendant of enslaved black people in this country. You could have been born in 1820 if you were black and looked back, to your ancestors and saw nothing but slaves all the way back to 1619. Look forward another 50 or 60 years and saw nothing but slaves, forward. There was no reason at that point in time to believe that emancipation was 40 or 50 years off. And yet folks resisted and folks fought on. So, fatalism isn't really an option. Even if you think you're not going to, necessarily win the fight today in your lifetime, in your child's lifetime, you still have to fight. I mean, it's kind of selfish to say that you're only going to fight for a victory that you will live to see. As an African American, I mean, we stand on the shoulders of people who fought despite not seeing victories in their lifetime, or even in their children's lifetime, or even in their grandchildren's lifetime. So fatalism isn't really an option.
Right now, as you and I are talking, Ta-Nehisi, there's an image that we're showing of folks who are marching down, I believe that is the West Side Highway, and they've shut it down. There have been a wave of protests ever since that grand jury decision was announced in Ferguson over a week ago. And one of the things I think that you keep pointing out in your writing is that at the time that protests happen, a lot of people are talking about how they're not the right kind of protest. They're too disruptive, right, or they're not accomplishing the right thing. And then 40 years later or 50 years later, the people who organize them get put on stamps. But then we forget that when they were actually happening, people they thought they were too disruptive.
Listen, the protest is against, the policies, or the inaction of policies by the American state. To expect the American state to then approve those protests at the same time is a little insane. It's easy to approve the protest 40 years later, when you don't have to deal with Martin Luther King, when you're not Bobby Kennedy and having, to worry about, balancing laws, federal laws and state laws. But people in that time, in the time of the actual protest, don't approve. In fact, if a protest that's approved of isn't, it kind of defeats itself. It's not actually a protest. It's not a protest. What are you protesting, if everybody agrees?
Ta-Nehisi, where do you think right now there is something about this moment that's kind of galvanizing? I mean, it just feels today like on the heels of what happened in Ferguson, with the video of the shooting of 12-year-old Tamir Rice, with the way that social media operates and the camera phones operating, we now have a kind of consciousness of what's happening that we weren't able to get before in quite the same way. And whether that galvanizes something nationally, what do you think?
Maybe. I don't know. I hope so. I would like to think so. I would like to think that, what effectively was the drive-by killing of an 11-year-old child would galvanize something. But Chris, I really hate to keep going back to this, but, we are under the weight of some 350 years of state-sanctioned racism and about 50 years of just halfway trying to dig our way out of that. To expect things to change because, a few cases over the past few months, I think it's to expect too much. This is a long fight. I'm not calling for fatalism. I'm not calling, for giving up. But, we got to be tougher than to just, expect that, because suddenly we're aware, or those of us who, watch and love MSNBC are aware that necessarily means the change is around the corner.
All right. And so that's that clip. It's worth watching the rest of that segment. We'll put a link to it, or maybe we'll embed it on our page at Majority FM. They brought on Steele. What's his first name? Michael Steele. And it was interesting. I mean, Hayes wanted to know if the right was going to sort of react in the same way that they did with Trayvon Martin, which is in the first couple of days come out and be like, this is an outrage. And then a couple of days later, it's like, this is just the way it should be.